welcome to your first session of business admin over here on YouTube. So I'm Michaela, I'm one of the tutors that work for Plato Training. You may have seen my introductory video already, so thumbs up for me on the video down below, hopefully. Okay, so let's get started. So your first unit we're going to look at is roles and responsibilities. So we're looking at roles and responsibilities in the context of a office environment because you want to work in business admin, or at least hopefully that's why you're here. So some aims and objectives for you here. So what we would like you to do is to be able to identify who works in an office, to define the roles and responsibilities of the people who work in the office, to state who they report to state how we all have responsibilities to help each other out at work as well, and to state why we must respect authority and to take responsibility for your own work. Okay, so on the first slide there, you'll see you've got an organisational chart. Okay, now, so this organisational chart relates to questions 1, 2 and 3. Okay. So we're just going to take a look at it first and foremost without doing anything in terms of your work so far. So the organisational chart, you'll see at the top you've got the Chief Executive Officer, who on here is called Thomas Edison. Down from Thomas you have got a HR and admin manager and a personal assistant to the CEO. So we've got Marie Curie and Blaise Pascal. Okay, then you'll see that Marie Curie and Blaise Pascal have both got little arrows sort of going down from them, or little stalks going down from them. Okay, now what that means is that the people who's sort of linked to them through those little stems, they are their line manager. Okay, so Marie Curie, she is the manager, the line manager of Isaac Newton and Nikola Tesla, whereas Blaise Pascal is the line manager for Alexander Bell. Then you'll see some little lines again from that level that I've just discussed there. So you'll see Louis Pasteur, Ada Lovelace and Carl Gauss. I really hope I'm saying these names correctly. Sorry if I'm not, I do apologise. So you'll see that they are being managed by the people that are in blue there. Okay, essentially from the top, the CEO is your main manager, and then at the bottom is your sort of people with the lower responsibilities. So you'll see things like evening receptionist, junior administrator, HR assistant, which are kind of the sort of giveaway signs that they are not having as much responsibility in the office there. So your next slide is about the roles and responsibilities that are associated with those job roles. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the names of the job titles. So you've got HR manager, admin manager, personal assistant, senior administrator, HR officer, HR assistant, junior administrator, senior secretary and receptionist. And I've just put on there that we're going to avoid CEO because as much as we might want to aim high, that's really quite high for us at this stage. So it's a little bit above the level we're working towards at this very moment in time, myself included, sadly. Okay, so from those job titles that I've given you, what I would like you to do is to research 4 of those. Okay, so you're going to research 4 job titles and you're going to tell me what their responsibilities are. Now, when you're researching these, you may find it quite beneficial to use a website like Indeed, like a job search website, maybe your Universal Job Match, perhaps that'll help you. If you type in these job titles, it should come up nice and clear if you type it on a job search website, because it's literally telling you the responsibilities. However, some job adverts are much better than others, so choose wisely. So what I would like you to do is to choose 4 job titles, do some research, tell me what the responsibilities of those jobs are, and I want you to do that for your first question. Okay, so if you can write that nice and neatly for me, either using the Word document using pen and paper, using the notes section on your phone, however it is you wish to complete that, and then just pause this video whilst you complete that. Okay, so you should now have finished question 1, and you should have laid out 4 job titles with 4 job responsibilities. So you should have told me in clear sentences what the responsibilities are for that job. Okay, now the next question relates to helping others at work. So when you are thinking about helping others at work, what I would like you to think about is what things can cross over from one job to another. Okay, so I've put you a bit of a list on here. So covering lunch breaks. No matter where you work, you might have to pick up someone's phone. If it's ringing, you don't want to miss a call from a customer or from the manager. Answering the phone when they're away from their desk. Kind of just said that, but they could be on a toilet break rather than a lunch break. Taking messages for them and emailing them to let them know. Okay, I've worked in offices in the past where people leave post-it notes on your screen, and it's fallen off and you've not seen it, and then someone says to you at 5 o'clock, "Oh, did you see that message I left you?" "No, where was it?" And it's disappeared, gone forever. Okay, so always email that response to them so that they know they can pick that up a lot easier. People could help each other at work by sharing a method of how to do something. So it could be something really, really specific, like how to share a formula on Excel. Or it could be something quite easy where someone shows someone else how to transfer a call from one phone to another. Another way to help each other out at work could be to provide sickness cover, to provide holiday cover. You could simply ask, are there any more jobs that need doing? Rather than just sitting there and perhaps twiddling your thumbs. It's all about using your initiative. Offer to help if someone's got a very high workload. You know, if you're free, offer to help. Offer some training and support to others. You could always ask for help. You could always ask for training and support as well. Okay. So what I would like you to do for this question is to state 4 ways that staff working in an office can help each other out at work. So you've got to use full sentences. If I was you, I would probably start it with staff in an office can help each other in various ways. The first example of this could be, and then my example on here says the HR manager can help the HR assistant by covering the phone line while she's on lunch break. So what I've done there is I've given you a very specific example. I've told you exactly who it is, who's helping, and who it is that they're helping and what the activity is that they're doing. So the HR manager can help the HR assistant by covering the phone line while she is on lunch break. Okay, so if you pause this video here, you can complete that question. Okay. So the next slide that you're going to come on to says the organisational chart again, and it's from that sort of first slide that we looked at in more detail. So it's back with Thomas Edison, the CEO, Marie Curie, Blaise Pascal. Okay, and you're probably thinking, why should she put that here again? Well, I did say that it relates to questions 1, 2 and 3, okay, because this is the organisation that we're kind of using for these first 3 questions. So what I would like you to do is to take a bit of inspiration from that organisational chart, and I would like you to sort of create your own one. So I've put a bit of an example on the screen. Okay, so you can have a look at that on your PowerPoint, or I'll try and get it on here if I can. I want you to show me how staff are organised. So I need you to either fill in the Word document or draw an organisational chart on paper and take a picture of it, so that I can see it, and I want you to show your understanding of what that is. So my top tip for you is the manager will always go at the top, the person with the most responsibility is at the top, and the person with the least responsibility is at the bottom. You can obviously change it around, it's entirely up to you how you do it, and who these people report to. Okay, so you can pause this video here to get that question done. And then I want you to make sure that you've done questions 1, 2 and 3 before you move forward. Okay, so we're on to question 4 now. I've got a couple of slides to go through just to give you some information about this section. What I've got on your PowerPoint here are some activities that can be undertaken in the office environment. So there's lots and lots of different ones on there. There's expenses sheets and invoices, sensitive information, confidentiality, minutes of meetings, resolving problems, sorting mail, managing staff appointments, and these are all activities that are undertaken in offices. Now, I've not put a time next to them, and the reason that I've not put a time next to them is because they could happen at any time throughout the day, and every office runs differently. So when you're looking at the day-to-day activities of an office, I want you to remember that every office is different, and every day in an office is different as well. So the daily routine is just an example. But what is important is that we must manage our time at work. So if you've got lots and lots of things to get through during the day, you need to make sure that you're managing your time effectively. So it could, for example, if you take an hour to write one letter, that might not be seen as productive, especially if it's less than one sheet of A4 paper. Whereas if you are sat in a meeting, you're taking minutes, and you are then writing a report of those minutes up, and that takes you an hour, then that is much more productive of your time because you've started a task and you've completed it. Yes, you could argue that, writing a letter may take a long time, but imagine, if you've got 20 letters, you haven't got 20 hours in the day to be spending an hour on each. So we've got to get the jobs done in a given time frame. It's got to be realistic for you to be able to get your jobs done. But you've also got to be efficient. So you've got to be quite fast working really in your office environment. And you've got to make sure that you've got enough time in the day to complete all the jobs that are required to be done. Otherwise, you're going to end up, with a backlog towards the end of the week, perhaps working through your lunch and working late, and you're not going to be paid for those hours. So it's not really going to be worth your efforts in that sense, because you're not going to see the money, the benefits of working for it. So for question 4, what I want you to think about is managing time on specific tasks. So how could you manage your time when you are answering phone calls and transferring them? How could you manage your time when you are monitoring stationery levels and office supplies? How could you manage your time when you are receiving, distributing and sorting out the mail? Okay. So when you are answering phone calls and transferring them, so somebody might ring you up and say, "Can I speak to Mrs. A?" If you were just immediately to transfer and then hang up your phone, Mrs. A, she might not be at her desk. Do we know who's calling her? Is it a cold caller? Is she expecting the call? Is it something urgent that she needs to speak to immediately? Is it something that could be transferred over email? Does she want to speak to them right now? Is she in a meeting? There's quite a lot of things that you've got to ask yourself. Is this call worth transferring right now? So how are you going to deal with that? So I think, you've got to think about it kind of logically. So you're going to answer that phone call professionally. You are going to find out who they want to speak to. So they want to speak to Mrs. A. You're going to ask them to hold just for a moment. You're going to dial the person. In this case, we're going to dial Mrs. A and see if they're available. If they are available, then we're going to transfer that call. If they're not available, we'll take the person's details down, who's calling them, and then send an email to Mrs. A to explain that they rang her. Okay? We're not just going to transfer the call immediately and then hang up, because that person might end up ringing back. Nobody answered. Why did nobody answer? It's going to take up more of your time, and it's going to create sort of bad customer service in a way, isn't it? If we are not dealing with it professionally and efficiently. Monitoring stationery levels and ordering office supplies. Okay. So when you're thinking about sort of ordering the office supplies and the stationery, obviously we need to make sure there's things like paper and toner. Definitely in our office, that's what we always need. Ironically, we're not really using paper at the minute, but usually That's our sort of big one that we use a lot of. So we need to always make sure we've got plenty of that in. But then likewise, you don't want to over order it because one, it's really bulky to store. Two, it's expensive. You know, your manager's not going to be happy if they've bought, you know, reams and reams and boxes of paper that really wasn't needed. So I think logically you need to think about it in terms of scheduling. So it really depends on the size of the office that you're working for, or the company that you're working for and the size that they are. I would say it'd be quite reasonable to check your stationery once a week, so like a Friday, for example. You could send an email to the rest of your team, see if there's anything they need ordering. Perhaps somebody, I don't know, works like I do. I work remotely. Would be teaching in Manchester, in like a church building. Perhaps my stapler broke last week and I need a new one. So I think, you know, asking staff if they need anything, that's a really helpful thing as well. And then set a date and a time, so have a schedule in place as to when you're going to be ordering that stationery. So this could be once a week if it's a really big organisation with a fast turnover. It could be once a month, it could be twice a month, but you need to have that date and time set. So like in our company, we know that our stationery gets ordered from our head office on a Friday. So if we want anything ordering, we need to have it sort of in play by Friday, otherwise we're going to have to wait till the following Friday. Okay, and then receiving, distributing and sorting the post. Now again, this really depends on where you're working. Okay, so if you're working in a small office with say 6 people, then you know you could probably just give it out without really having to sort of sort it as such. You know, maybe just putting it into name order because you don't want to be walking back and forth around people's desks. You just want to get it over and done with as quick as you can. If you're working in an office where there's multiple floors or multiple offices, it wouldn't really make much sense to sort it out by sort of alphabet, because you're going to end up going to, you know, Mrs. A on floor 3, Mr. B on floor 1, Mr. C on floor 5, and you're going to be up and down those stairs and you're going to get quite the fitness task, but also you're going to be not using your time effectively. It's quite silly to sort of do that, isn't it? So what could you do instead? So this is the point in the classroom, obviously, where we'd normally have a discussion rather than just me talking at you. But I think, you know, if you've got to think about it sort of more logically, it would be more beneficial to sort it out either by sort of office. So if you've got small offices in a building, you know, sort it by office, sort it by floor if you're on different floors there. But you could also think about sorting it into priority order. So perhaps you've got like a CEO, a principal if you're at sort of a school or a college, someone who might have more important mail coming in. You should always try and sort that out first and distribute that to them first. Okay, so that should give you some ideas to write your question 4 out. Okay, now on your Word document, I've set it out as a table. It doesn't have to be a table, just as long as you've got your question written out, that'll be fine. And just make sure that you're telling me how you're gonna manage the tasks to show that they're completed on time. And you can use those 3 examples that I've given you. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit more, you can use some others from the activities list that's on your PowerPoint. Okay, so pause this video here to answer that question. Okay, so question 5 is about progress at work. Okay, so this question is actually about progress and problems at work. So the first slide, we're going to discuss progress. So why must we report our progress and how we're getting on? We understand that, you know, other staff members, managers, supervisors, they all need to know how we're getting on with things, but why do we have to do it? So it's sort of thinking a little bit inside the box here, rather than outside, but why do we have to tell people where we're up to with tasks? So you've got to think about it in terms of, you know, if your shift finishes at say 2 and the next team come on at 2 till 8 or something like that, then they're going to need to know where you're up to with that task, what you've completed, what's left to do, so that no jobs get forgotten. Otherwise, you might come in the next day and be like, oh, I was halfway through that. You could have at least finished it. But if you've not passed on that information, it just might not be known. Progress at work also allows your manager to measure how successful you are at different tasks. They can see how good you are at sort of managing your time, at being able to work at a steady pace, at being able to complete tasks accurately, efficiently. And with that, if you are quite efficient, you might get more responsibility. Hopefully that'll come with more money, but more responsibility, more jobs to do. And then in terms of problems at work, why must we report problems at work? So again, your staff, your supervisors, your managers, they all need to know about problems at work, but why? So it's to give your manager a chance to help you. You could also think of it about, in terms of health and safety, if there's something wrong with the equipment that you're using and that's the problem, you need to report it. The equipment's not working, the equipment is broken, part of it's snapped, is it going to harm somebody? Your manager, your supervisor, they need to know about this. If you're not reporting that problem on and they find out that you've not reported it, then that becomes sort of down to you to take responsibility for that. If you feel that you're able to tell your managers, it gives you a chance to say when you're having an issue, okay? Now, the reason that I've sort of put that in there is because some workplaces can be quite hostile, but you need to be very open with your managers, and they need to be able to help you and be open with you as well, because then they can help you with your problems and they can train you around them. So it could be that you're finding a task particularly difficult, and you feel like, oh, they're just going to have a go at me. I don't want to do this anymore. It's much better if there's, very much like an open policy where you feel that you can speak to your manager, because then that problem can be resolved and your sense of sort of self-esteem, your confidence in your ability will go up, and you'll only get better and better at work if you do that. What's the last one on there? So if we're not reporting problems, it can have an impact on the rest of the team. So completing a task together, then it might be difficult for the rest of the team to progress if you've not been able to do your part. So for example, if you are sorting out letters to go to the post office, for example, and you've all been given, 50 each to sort of wrap up and use the franking machine on or something, if you've not reported that you're having an issue with your franking machine, the person who is going to the post office is waiting for you, then you're going to become that sort of problem at work rather than the actual franking machine. So it's always just best to try and speak up. I know it's easier said than done sometimes. I've certainly worked places where I haven't had managers that are very nice. I'm very lucky now, in case the manager's watching. But yeah, just always try and use your confidence, and just be nice about it. It's not a fault blame thing, is it? So for question 5, I want you to state why we must keep others informed of progress and problems with work activities. So I want you to try and use both progress and problems in your answer, because there's 2 slides on them and I've discussed both of them here for you. You've got to use paragraphs, so I want you to use sentences to develop a paragraph there, okay? Again, you've got your Word document that you can write in, whatever way you've been doing it, just carry on that way. So pause this video here to do that. So the next question is about accepting responsibility at work, okay? So we've got to accept responsibility for our actions, okay? You have got a job description that you've got to work towards, and whatever that job description says that you are doing, those are your responsibilities, okay? We're not just paid to sit around, sadly. We've got to do what is set out for us in that job description. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth paying us, is it? So when you're accepting responsibility, it shows that you're trustworthy. It shows that you've got a good character. So it shows that you're worthy of that job. It shows that you take ownership and pride in your work, and overall that you do well in your work. It shows that you're motivated to complete all of your tasks, and that you're able to own up if there's a problem. Okay? So I want you to do your next question, which is question 6. So state why it is important to accept responsibility for our own work. Again, you must write in sentences and develop this into a small paragraph for me. So rather than just sort of bullet pointing as I have, you need to write that more in sort of sentences. So tell me why. Okay, so I'll just pause this video here. Okay, so now we're on to authority at work. So authority at work, okay. So I've just got a couple of definitions here for you. So the authorities are the people who have the power to make decisions and to make sure that laws are obeyed. Authority is the right to command and control other people. An authority is an official organisation or government department that has the power to make decisions, so such as the health authority, the local authority. Okay, so although none of those are sort of directly, as I'm talking about, authority to command and control other people, it sounds quite mean, doesn't it, to make sure laws are obeyed. Although these are written really, really strongly, in terms of working, authority at work is going to be your line manager, okay? So although these don't sort of match up entirely to what we're saying, you can see some transferable words there. Anywhere you work, you've got to respect authority, but what does that mean? Okay. So when you look at the organisational chart, the company structure that we looked at before, where we had the CEO, Thomas Edison, Marie Curie, Blaise Pascal. We talked about who was at the top, and then we worked down to show different line managers there. Okay, so the manager is always at the top, but the line managers can be throughout. But you must always listen to your line manager because they're the ones that have got the authority over yourself at work. Some people don't like to listen to instructions. Some people don't like to listen to others who are sort of higher up than them. But unless you're going to be right at the top of the chain, giving out the orders, so to speak, then that's the way that the world works, okay? So your line manager can give you direction at work. It's not just about giving you sort of direct instructions. They can give you direction, they can tell you how to become better at your job, they can give you training and things like that. So it's all going to benefit you. But they also might give you jobs that you don't like doing, okay? Like, I don't really like sorting out files for audit, boxing up old files. I don't really like that side of the job. But if it's not done, then who's going to do it? So we all have to do things we don't like, don't we? So what I would like you to do for question 7 is to state the importance of understanding authority at work. So again, you must write in full sentences and develop a paragraph. What I would like you to do is just to break it down into a couple of questions. So what does authority mean? And why must we understand authority at work? Okay. So just pause this video here whilst you write that one. So your next question is about instructions at work. So a little bit sort of leading on from the last question there, instructions at work. So we need to follow instructions no matter where we work, okay? It's not just in office, business, admin, it's absolutely everywhere, isn't it? But why? So what I want you to be able to tell me is what could happen if we don't follow these instructions. So we've got to work towards the policies and procedures, okay? So policies and procedures are put in place to look after all employees, not just yourself, not just your managers, but everybody in the workplace. Because they're written up lawfully, because they are underpinned by laws, that means that we really cannot make up our own rules, because what has been written will obviously sort of stand up in court, most probably. So if we don't listen to authority, and if we don't listen to instructions, if we're not doing our job responsibilities, then we're going to get in trouble. We're going to face a disciplinary. The disciplinary could be, you know, just a black mark on your record, but it could also mean that you get fired, that you get found to be, you know, they call it gross misconduct, and we don't want that for you. So what I would like you to do is to be able to tell me why we must follow instructions at work. So outline why it is important to follow instructions when completing tasks at work, So again, you must write in full sentences to develop a paragraph, and I want you to tell me why we must follow instructions and what might happen if we don't follow those instructions. So just pause that video there whilst you are working on that one. Okay, so nearly at the end of this first little bit for you. I've just done 10 questions for this first bit, so it's a little bit bite-sized for you, just to get used to things. So, goals at work, okay? So personal goals. So why is it important that we have personal goals in the workplace? So if I think about personal goals that I have, at the moment I teach under a level 3 qualification, but I'd quite like to get to a level 5 or a level 6 qualification really. I'm not currently studying at the moment towards that, but I do know that I want to do it. So I have made some inquiries. Now, sort of the longer I teach, the easier it'll be to sort of write up case studies and things. So, you know, I know that I'll get there and I know that I have that goal, and that sort of keeps me motivated. So that's your first point really, to feel motivated. So if we feel motivated to do a qualification, that qualification could lead to a bit of this. You could get a pay rise for it. You could get a promotion, more responsibility. You can add it to your CV, which may make you more employable for your desired job that you want. And it also shows good character. It shows that you are interested in investing in yourself. So I've put some examples of some personal goals at work that you could have. So because we're doing a level 1 qualification here, I thought maybe we could think about getting you qualified to level 2. Why would that be a good thing for you? The other one I've put on there, maybe to become a key holder. So quite often in sort of offices and things, you can become a key holder, so you can almost become like a supervisor, open up, close up, that type of thing. And that is, you know, that bit more responsibility, that bit more accountability as well. So why would it be a good thing for you to be able to do that? Well, like I said before, you could put it on your CV. You can maybe get a promotion, show that you are responsible and show that you are eager and motivated to get these things done. So what I would like you to do is to describe why it is important to have individual goals and targets at work. So when you are describing, you must develop a paragraph, okay? This is the one where we really need to see a paragraph from you. So please write in full sentences there. So it is important to have goals and targets at work because, and then use some of those key points that I made or think of your own as well. So just pause this video here whilst you finish that one. And then your final question for your first session here. Goals at work again, but team goals, okay? So team goals, so if you're working in an office with 3, maybe 5 other people, why is it important to have team goals, okay? So when I worked in university admin, we used to take calls from people that had just finished their A-levels, they'd just got the results, and most of those people that were ringing us didn't have the results they were expecting, so they'd often come out quite a bit lower. So what the university did was they would take the places that they had, have a look at how many was left, and then just lower the eligibility grades to get in slightly, which would mean that we could make offers to people over the phone to get them enrolled on the courses. So I worked in a team of about, I think it's about 7 of us, and from our team of 7 there was different teams of 7 around the room. We would get sort of measured on how many calls we took from people, how many offers we were able to make, and they sort of made it into like a bit of a fun chart, but really they had us working to targets without necessarily saying you are working to targets. And then within your sub teams as well, so within your teams of 7, it was whoever got the most calls and the most offers out of that as well. So you could win as a collective team or a sort of personal team, for a personal goal as well. So having team goals at work can help us because we can show good teamwork. So we definitely did. We won a couple of times. You can work to your strengths. So like, for example, if I didn't know the answer to something, you know, you can ask the person next to you because you've got that good relationship. You can learn from each other. Communication should be easier because you're working together. You should have good time management. And you can talk about good teamwork in your appraisal. If you can show that you're able to work really, really well in your team, if you're able to show that you are working collectively with your team and really adding value to the things that are happening, be it working to targets, be it sorting the mail, whatever it is that you're doing, then you should be able to justify yourself to ask for a pay rise. And that's always a nice thing to be able to ask for and say, I deserve this because if we don't ask for these things, we often don't get them. So your question there is, describe why it is important to have team goals and targets at work. I've put a couple of examples on here that you may or may not wish to work with. So to complete a large administration task as a team by arranging a year's worth of files into archive boxes in 2 days, and to win an award for being a great team. So that first one there about the archive boxes, like I say, it's really not my favourite job, but I've had to do that before. Literally after sort of 4 o'clock, when everybody had left the building, when I worked at my old job in education, just files everywhere, trying to get them in alphabet order, in date order at the same time. Quite a tricky task, and then getting them all into archive boxes. And we only had a couple of days before the van was going to come to collect them, to take them off. So it does take a lot of sort of stress and organisation between yourselves to get those kind of tasks done. So for that last question, please do make sure that you describe using full sentences for me to develop that into a paragraph. Okay? So by the end of this first piece of work, you should have been able to identify who works in an office, to define the roles and responsibilities of those people in an office and look at who they report to. You should have been able to state the responsibilities that we have to help out our colleagues, and to explain the importance of taking responsibility for your own work and respecting authority at work. Okay, so thanks ever so much for watching. If you've got any questions or queries, please don't hesitate to call me, to text me, to email me, to speak to me on Microsoft Teams. I am available throughout the day, just not at weekends. Okay, thanks.